Hello, and welcome to Thinking Solo, where we talk about different ways to succeed in business and life as a solo entrepreneur. My name is Ryan Derousseau, and I'm a financial advisor, and you can find me at thinkcapfinancial.com as well as Thinking Solo YouTube page. Today, I'm going to talk about something that comes up quite often in my work, and that is how to manage wealth and grow wealth when you have variable income. So you have income that goes up and down, up and down, up and down. How do you trap it? Keep it going so you are actually growing wealth over the long term. It's a really important topic for those who are self-employed. So it's a really important thing to kind of understand and dig into. And then, of course, there will be a movie review at the very end as well. So thanks for joining and can't wait to talk to you today. So in order to manage variable income, it's really important to understand what you're sort of protecting against, and that is sort of the inability to have more income come in. And so sometimes that fear leaves people afraid to do and move and manage things in a way that allows them to grow wealth. And so you have to sort of manage that fear in this process and kind of protect against it. And so the things that I'm going to talk about today is sort of how to kind of circumvent that, protect yourself from it, and then ensure that you are growing. So the first thing you need to do is sort of pay yourself first. And this could be a percentage of what you bring in. I like to determine, when you first start out, it will probably just be a percentage. So let's say you make $1,000 that month, you need to put $300 towards taxes. If you're even doing that at that point, you're just trying to get by. So this is beyond sort of once you've gotten the very, very start. But what I like to do is figure out sort of what your expenses are. So how much do you actually spend on the personal side of your life? And then step back from there. And that is how much you pay yourself. Because if you're covering your basic needs and wants on the personal side, you don't really need any more income from the business at first. I mean, eventually you want to give yourself raises, you want to, give yourself more money. That will come in time, but it's not right away. And so at first we want to know how much are we spending on a monthly basis on the personal side? Let's funnel that in from the business. Meanwhile, we're going to start saving more in the business. So now we have protection. So if we have a month that's weaker or 2 months that's weaker, well, we've built protection so we can still pay ourselves and cover our bills over here. And that's really where I like to start. And so if you have never done budgeting or anything like that, as you are building your business, it's really important to understand because the lower you spend on the personal, the quicker that you can become profitable on the business. And that's because you're just simply paying yourself less. And so if you're paying yourself less, then you're able to build savings, able to build a safety net, and you're able to invest in the business. And so that's really where I like to start. The second thing we want to do is build a buffer account, essentially an emergency fund. Just like you have an emergency fund in your personal side, you want an emergency fund in the business side. And when we combine the two, it might look like we're holding a lot of cash, but the cash on the business side isn't really like that because there is going to be ups and downs. There is going to be times where you're paying taxes and it's far less money in there. Or you're paying yourself an extra distribution and there's far less money in there. And so while the emergency fund on the personal side, if nothing like really important is happening or anything like that, it might not move all that much. The emergency fund on the business side does, develop some churn and whatnot. But if we can develop 3 to 6 months of cash on the business side, then we have really created a protection against a downturn or weak months or things like that. And if you're in a service-based business or therapist or private practice where you also need to take vacations, and you're not making any money on those vacations, that also provides that buffer because now you have protection in case, like you go into Hawaii or something. And so building that within the business is just as important as building it in the personal side. And how you build it, you find 3 months of expenses as well as your income, cover that. That's the amount that would be in the business account or business savings or wherever you sort of want to store that. Third thing you're going to want to do is either open a SEP IRA or a solo 401k or another tool, depending on the type of business that you have. so you can start saving for long-term needs like retirement and things of that nature. A really important area and caveat when we are building wealth as a business owners, we have to save for our retirement. But if we're saving into our retirement, we're creating a separate business line that we can fund, and it doesn't fund until much further in the future. But if you have this business operating here and this future account that you're going to use in the future operating over here, you're going to start feeling a lot wealthier a lot sooner because you have multiple streams that of potential income sources. And not only that, you're able to keep more of your money if you're doing that because you're getting tax breaks by the time you're putting money in a retirement account. And so build adding that SEP IRA or that solo 401k is really important because we are creating wealth for ourselves. And that means we are putting aside that wealth, we are actively developing it. And even though there's the variable income, well, we have this money over here that's just growing, hopefully over time. That's not really being impacted by the ups and downs of our business. It's just being impacted by the ups and downs of the market. And so developing the solo 401k or SEP IRA for that purposes is really important for as you're building your business because you're not going to be able to build wealth if you're not actually actively taking money out of the business and putting it to your long-term goals. As your business starts to grow, the what's going to happen is you're going to feel more ability to spend. You're going to be able to pay yourself more from the business. And what results is what's called lifestyle creep. We start spending more and more and more. And even though we're making more in the business, we're not necessarily making more at the end of the day because it's all going out on the personal side. And so as the business grows, we need to increase our savings rate and our tools to save correspondingly. So, if the first couple of years you're at $200,000 and now you're at $400,000 in profit, well, we need more savings to capture that. So whether it's a brokerage account, whether it's saving more in a retirement account or other tools, like we need to start incorporating that into our overall plan because otherwise we're going to be growing wealth like very slowly while our income is going like this, our wealth capture isn't going up nearly as fast because we're not doing anything to capture it. It's coming one out in one hand, out the other. And we want to avoid that because you're spending more. That means we also need to save more. And people get used to spending more. Like once you start doing it, it's really hard to go backwards. And that's why another reason why we need to keep ensuring that we are saving as much as we can along the way, even as our income is increasing. So one, we're not preventing too much creep, but also we're protecting ourselves from the fact that creep will start seeping in. That's really the things that we need to do off the bat, within the first couple years of operations when we really start to see the business sort of rise. I mean, there's other things that we can do along the way, both from like a business management standpoint, but also pay structure standpoint. But in the meantime, those are the sort of tactics to capture wealth, which is really kind of the important part of the process here. Today's movie review is a movie that I'd seen, years ago, and I thought it was good. Like I get it, like people like it and whatnot, but I found it kind of irritating and whatnot, and not super engaging. And then I just, I happened to hear a podcast where they're talking about it, and it made me want to watch it again. And suddenly I'm like, wow, this is maybe one of the better movies that Steven Spielberg directed, and that's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Obviously, you've probably heard of this. It's 1977. Richard Dreyfuss, there's some sort of connection between the Earth and a higher UFO sort of entity, and what happens after that between Richard Dreyfuss and other characters being pulled towards the UFO and where it's going in the middle of, I believe it's Wyoming, and as well as the government efforts to try and keep it under wraps. And it's very timely because there's a lot of paranoia in the world right now and things of that nature. So there's some layers that makes it very, very timely for today. But what had prevented me from connecting with it previously was just Richard Dreyfuss's character. I'm not always the biggest fan of Richard Dreyfuss as an actor, and this is a movie in particular where I really struggled connecting with what he was doing, particularly since he had a family, he had kids. And I think Steven Spielberg has even said that he wouldn't have written it this way. But now seeing it in, my eyes today, I found it just much more engaging. I was able to ignore the things I disliked about Dreyfus's performance and actually just enjoy the movie a lot more. And you really see the obsession that takes hold. And it's easy as a solopreneur and entrepreneur to recognize that obsession. In this case, it's just seeking UFOs, but in other cases, it's, building that business and whatnot at all costs in the case of Richard Dreyfuss. And we don't want it to be at all costs in what we're doing. We're building the business for our family. We're building the business for a betterment of our lives, not for some sort of obsession and whatnot. But you can get wrapped up into it. I mean, it can become an obsession. And if it's a healthy obsession, it can be really good. If it's really a unhealthy obsession, it can turn into what happened in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and maybe that's not great. But as an entrepreneur, there's a lot to recognize in Richard Dreyfuss's character's actions in the movie. And so I think that was a big appeal and something that I could connect with a little bit more this time. More importantly, the movie just really connects on the scale of sort of what happens and sort of the different areas of touch points that would be impacted by such a presence entering our system. It's also unique in that it's a very friendly alien encounter. They're not here to decimate us like so many movies. Instead, they're here to try to connect and communicate and what that would be like. There's been other movies, Contact comes to mind like that, but really 1977, it's probably one of the earlier ones that was like that. And so that was really, really cool to see. So I would say like if I was giving it out of 5-star reviews, my enjoyment of it went from like, 3 stars to like 4.5 stars. So it really jumped in value. And so I would strongly encourage anyone out there interested in reconnecting with it to watch it again. That's today's show. Again, you can find me on YouTube at Thinking Solo. I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Ryan Derousseau. You can reach me on my website at thinkingcapfinancial.com. Be sure to subscribe. I'll speak to you next time. And in the meantime, keep grinding.